Another one of the most common ways to move the camera is to shoot handheld. This is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of putting the camera on some stationary apparatus, the camera is held by hand. This creates an organic shakiness that creates a lot of energy in the frame. If the camera lens represents the eyes of the audience, then handheld shots are like cranking up the heartbeat of the audience, making it so they just can't sit still. The most common usage for this is probably fight scenes, both verbal and physical. The war boys are on the hunt in this scene from Mad Max Fury Road. Almost every shot in this sequence has a frenetic movement of a handheld camera to keep the energy up, and it really works. In the movie Whiplash, throughout much of the film, even when things were tense because the student couldn't quite keep up with the teacher, the camera was still pretty stable. But later, when the teacher and student were in direct conflict with each other, the camera becomes noticeably handheld. Even some of these reaction shots of the other people in the band seeing this fight are handheld. This maintains a high level of intensity throughout the scene. Now, it doesn't always have to be this intense. Just like in real life, fighting isn't the only thing that causes our hearts to race. In this climactic scene from Silver Linings Playbook, Pat and Tiffany are finally being open with each other about their feelings. They're not fighting, they're nervous and passionate, and the very subtle camera movement enhances that energy. When handheld camera moves are combined with large objects in the extreme foreground that obscures a large part of the frame, it can create a sense of intimacy. And it does this because it makes the audience feel like we're hiding, like we're watching something private that we shouldn't be. This voyeuristic device was very common in some of the more tender scenes in The Office, especially those between Jim and Pam. Notice how there always seems to be something in the way for these shots. This is intentional because it allows us as the audience to feel like we're sharing an intimate moment with the characters. Handheld shots also lend themselves to feeling homemade, which can add a feeling of authenticity. We can see this in Saving Private Ryan. In this shot, there isn't really anything happening in the scene that requires extra energy from the camera. The camera motion mostly just creates the sensation of actually being there. Saving Private Ryan is also helped by the fact that most war footage that we've seen from this era was actually shot on handheld cameras. So this is what we're used to World War II footage looking like. Of course, this is also helpful for movies that are supposed to feel like found footage. This was brought to popularity in recent times by the Blair Witch Project. In this case, they actually did give the actors cameras and had them film themselves. The benefit of that is it genuinely feels like footage shot by amateurs. The downside, however, is that it genuinely feels like footage shot by amateurs. A lot of people got dizzy with those super sloppy camera moves, especially in the theater where everything is bigger and exaggerated. So you should definitely be careful about how intense you are with handheld shots. Again, we'll look more at this in the cinematography course, but if you could use things like a shoulder-mounted rig to help stabilize the camera, maybe use a wider lens, these things, they could add energy to shots without inducing nausea. One other warning about handheld shots. Like the other camera moves in this chapter, please avoid the temptation to do them to your footage in post. The upcoming courses on visual effects, I'll show you how we added just a few frames of camera shake when the explosion went off in the night scene. Again, this was just a few frames and it was very solid movement, but even that's not realistic and ideal because camera moves just can't be faked easily in post-production. There's really no substitute for a true handheld camera shot. It can add so much energy to a shot as well as a great human element when done well.